man. Welcome back to another F1 video for today. I'm recording this late, so I said I did take yesterday, y'all. We are back with today. Recording this late, I had something to do earlier today. I had to get a haircut today, as you guys can see. Looking spectacular, outstanding. Anyway, that's besides the point. I'm back with the man, I'm back with the myth, I'm back with the legend. Shout out to the F1 track who did make the video. All credit goes to him. And then, listen, so I started season 4 of Drive to Survive, the latest season. Also, new one's coming like next month. And so I'm like, I just finished the first episode at Bahrain, and guess who spun out? The man himself, Nikita. So, we're just gonna see, man, how bad he was. Obviously, we did check out the TV. You guys are not checking the TV one on the channel. I think I did like last week or something like that. But Mazepin. Shitty pin. Anyway, let's start with the video. Don't forget to like the video. And so, if you are new to the channel, almost to 5K. It's crazy. Anyway, the man himself, Nikita Mazepin. Let's get it, man. Let's get it.
Rewind back to 2020 and Nikita Mazepin was already a pretty unpopular person. And we all know the reason why. It's safe to say his
Whoa. Hold up. Wait, what?
Unpopular person. And
Instagrammer who was... Whoa. Okay, so you guys know most professional sports, the management team and stuff like that obviously do background checks on the players, NBA, NFL, soccer, football, F1 for example. I would think F1 for example. It's my first time hearing about this potential incident. Like I said, I don't follow drivers for off the field stuff unless it just shows up, unless I just see it. But yeah, it's not a good look for Haas today. If this came out and they did go ahead and sign Mazepin, it's very interesting, and it's not a good look. And yes, I know Mazepin's not with the team no more for a lot more different reasons, but for them to still sign him after this, okay.
And we all know the reason why. It's safe to say his Formula 1 career really wasn't off to the best of starts, especially as he was already coming into the sport with a pay driver reputation. And some uninspiring F2 seasons.
I mean, his dad
But I want
like
to take a look at his 2021 season and see if it really was as terrible as many people believe. Hey guys, it's Taran and welcome to the On Track channel, where today we'll be having a look at if this guy really did have one of F1's worst rookie seasons, or do people just...
Who's worse? Him or Latifi? You guys gotta let me know. Y'all let me know in the comments down below who was worse between Nicholas Latifi and Nikita Mazepin.
Hate him, or both. Before we get into it, do make sure to give the video a thumbs up if you enjoy and subscribe down below. It really does help out the channel and is much appreciated. Now, let's get started. Starting with pre-season testing, we got our first chance to see his washing machine impressions, a sight the F1 community would become all too familiar with. But testing is only testing, and maybe his first race weekend wouldn't be too bad, right? He kicked off qualifying in Bahrain in fine style, locking the rears and spinning into turn 1, subsequently finishing a whole 1.62 seconds off of even the Q1 cutoff. But the points were always handed out on the Sunday, so maybe that'll be better. Well, it wasn't. The Russian followed his dodgy sat-nav in turn 3, taking a hard left into the barrier, also giving F1 fans PTSD from the last Bahrain Grand Prix in the process. Now, I'm no expert, but when you successfully complete less corners than there are wheels on the car, you're doing something wrong. It's safe to say his first race weekend was definitely bad and also earned him the nickname Nikita Mazepin. On to Imola now for his second race weekend, which didn't start off great, this time following the sat-nav to the right and into the wall at the end of FP1. He did manage to qualify P19 on Saturday and within a whole second of Q2, but only after teaching fellow rookie Sonoda his signature move. The race started better this time, making it all the way past turn 13 before Canadian Cash on Wheels decided he wanted the pay driver crown back.
Jesus.
Somehow, with all the chaos at the start, he was up to 16th, but very soon found himself back in his usual spot of last place, and despite a red flag mid-race when George Russell decided to physically force his way into the Mercedes seat, he still finished over a minute behind his teammate Mick Schumacher. So in Imola, once again, it's a bad weekend.
Portugal.
In Portugal, his usual spin made an appearance in FP3 before finishing qualifying in, you guessed it, last place. For the first few...
So my guy is crashing like every like Okay, but Latifi wasn't this bad though, man. Latifi was not this bad. Now we have seen some bad drivers. We have seen some bad drivers. I think Mahever's one. Obviously Latifi, Mazepin. No, no.
Few laps he battled with his teammate before eventually settling into his below-average race pace. During the race, his big moment came on lap 46 when race leader Mexican Tom Cruz tried to get past. The Russian decided he would get out of the way, then not get out of the way, then get out of the way again, almost taking off Checo's front wing in the process. We were now properly introduced to another type of Mazepin incident, and he picked up his first penalty point of the season in yet another bad weekend.
Spain.
In Spain, he span in FP1. It's already almost not worth me covering these anymore. You can basically assume if there's a practice session, there will be a backwards-facing Russian flag. Sorry, Hascar, because in no way whatsoever did the livery resemble the Russian flag.
And you know how much money Ismail Haas is having to spend? Because every race, Mazepin's car is done. It's crashed. It's done this. It's done that. The amount of money they are spending for this man to crash the cars is outrageous. It's crazy. It's foolishness. We're only 3 minutes in. We still got 10 more minutes to go.
On Saturday, he managed to show off his multitasking ability, qualifying in last place while also blocking Lando Norris on a hot lap, gaining another penalty point in the process. His teammate, on the other hand, managed to outqualify Latifi. Other than being overtaken and being a bit slow to get out of the way for Lewis Hamilton, his race wasn't too eventful, but he did still finish 50 seconds back from his teammate and 2 laps down. So say it with me, bad weekend.
Monaco.
Coming into Monaco, the F1 community expected Mazepin to end up in the bottom of the harbour, but for the first time he managed to outqualify his teammate. All it took was for Mick Schumacher to not set a lap time after getting up close and personal with the casino barriers. At the start of the race, he was overtaken at the hairpin by his teammate, but made his way back past, albeit due to a fuel issue with the German's car, but hey, an overtake at Monaco is something even Sir Lewis couldn't do. Overall, I'd say he had an okay race, but in my opinion, staying out of the walls, or in this case the harbour, is kind of a bare minimum, hence why it's just okay.
Azerbaijan.
On to Azerbaijan, and after a race-off in Monaco, he was back in the wall in FP1.
This is sick.
In FP2, he decided to pick a fight with the Chile Master, getting in the way after completing his hot lap. He then completed the practice incident Triple Crown, hitting the wall in FP3 before getting set for qualifying, where he ended up P18 after Lance Stroll and Italian Jesus both crashed out. In the race, he was down to last place by the first corner and mostly just spent his laps being slow. There was an incident of note on the final run to the line as he pulled a last-second dangerous move to try and stop his teammate passing. It didn't work, and while he still finished 15th, technically beating both Hamilton and Verstappen, he did add another skill to his F1 repertoire. Before the red flag with Verstappen's crash, he was well over a minute behind his teammate. Combine that with his finish line shenanigans and practice crashes, it's another bad weekend.
France.
On to round 7 in France. In FP2, the Russian claimed his first virtual victim of 2021, after a website tracking all his spins decided to stop uploading, because, well, yeah. He doubled down on the spins in FP3, which, to be fair to the guy, in the words of George Russell,
consistency is key.
And well, he is most definitely consistent. He qualified P18, roundabout average, but finished 10 seconds behind his teammate in 20th and last place. I'll be nice for this weekend and say it was okay. Next up was the first of back-to-back races at the Red Bull Ring. He spun in both FP2 and FP3, and honestly I'm now doubting how much longer I can cover this man while retaining the will to live. He qualified in last and was also last at the finishes. While Mick Schumacher beat Latifi in the Williams, he was over 40 seconds off his teammate, and that means his okay run ends at one weekend. It was also at this point where even his team boss Günther Steiner had to get in on the joke, gifting the Russian a spinning top, cementing his reputation as Nikita Mazepin.
It's funny thing was, Mazepin's laughing, but Steiner's about to make a little inside joke like, my God, you suck. Like, you ain't doing anything for us. You're spinning out. Yeah, one decent Monaco because of a stopping crash. But every race, Azerbaijan, France, Austria, every race Bahrain, every race you was at, you was dog crap, bro. How can you be this bad in F1?
For the second race in Austria, something quite incredible happened.
This is
no
ridiculous.
spins through FP1, 2, or 3. Could he be in for an instant free weekend?
What?
No. On the second to last lap, he failed to respect double wave yellow flags, got slapped with a 10-second stop-go penalty, which became 30 seconds added to his race time, as well as 3 more penalty points.
Jesus.
Given he was almost 50 seconds behind Mick even before the penalty, it was already a bad weekend, and this just confirmed it.
GB, Great
On to the
Britain.
British Grand Prix in the land of teabags, traffic jams and dinosaurs. Silverstone was the circuit where he'd won before and a place where the drivers would get the chance to try out the new sprint race, qualifying.
Wait. He won before. Not enough happy like in Formula 2, Formula 3, wherever he was.
Thing.
He won a race?
Which obviously meant that he needed to try spinning in that too. Obviously. This time hitting his teammate in the process, something Nico Rosberg would definitely advise against.
This corner, actually, I don't know much about. I'm not very good at this corner. Let's skip this one. Let's go to the next one.
In the race, he did fare a little better, finishing ahead of his teammate on track, having completed a pretty nice move into the Vale chicane. Taking the sprint qualifying and the race into consideration, I'd say it was an okay weekend.
Hungary.
The last race before the summer break took us to Hungary, and while at the front Bottas bowling took centre stage, with Mazepin at the back not too much happened, because, well, the Alfa Romeo mechanics just decided to forget what a safe release was. That's not his fault, and so I guess this weekend is just kind of meh. Besides, Schumacher only managed a P12, so I doubt Mazepin was missing out on much.
Haas would take that. Haas would definitely take that. Summer break.
After the summer break, we went to Spa, and it's back-to-back races with not much to say. In a wet qualifying, he took his usual place of last and was almost a second off Schumacher's time. While the race on Sunday was just like Michael Massey, an absolute joke, it did bring something amusing. Mazepin had got himself a Formula 1 fastest lap. Well, until he didn't, as given the result was taken from the end of the first lap and not the second, because, well, rules. Ultimately, the fastest lap was rescinded, and he still has none. So, once again, it's just kind of meh.
The Dutch.
Next up was Max Verstappen land, and while he had his usual practice spin, there was an incident to note in qualifying. The two Haas cars went full Noah's Ark and blocked Sebastian Vettel on a flying lap. While no penalties were handed out, Nikita publicly blamed Schumacher and the tension in the team was clear to see. Mazepin started the race from last as usual, but had to retire due to a hydraulic issue. I guess given the issues in this one, he did okay, I guess.
Monza.
At the next race in Monza, the Russian managed to keep his car pointing in the right direction for a change, and after qualifying in P20, started the race 16th, due to a good sprint and a penalty for the Valtteri Bottas engine factory. So far so good, but in the race he again committed the cardinal sin of colliding with his teammate, for which he received the grand prize of +1 penalty points. He ultimately retired with a power unit issue.
That's so frustrating. It's just like if I was listen, if Chaz Motorsports was going crazy and I get 2 drivers, and since I'm the team principal, that's be both my drivers continuously just causing havoc on the track, not performing well. I got one driver taking out another driver. At some point, man, it's gonna get to you. At some point, you're gonna be tired of the BS. At some point, man, you gotta just punch your foot on the ground and say enough is enough. Now, listen, I don't agree with getting rid of drivers midway through a season, but at some point, man, at every race, you can have a clean race in FP1, FP2, FP3, qualifying, in the actual race. We can have a single good weekend of you not crashing. At some point, you got to straighten out. Now, no, I think their dad sponsored them, sponsored teams, stuff like that. At some point, man, you got to straighten out. You got
and had his 4th race in a row without completion.
Jesus.
But with the collision, it was still a bad weekend. Another key point to take away was that as Robert Kubica had now finished 14th and 15th, filling in for Kimi Räikkönen, Mazepin was sitting 21st in a 20-car championship.
That's embarrassing. Russia.
Next up was Mother Russian Automobile Federation. FP1 and FP2 were navigated successfully with the 3rd practice session rained off. When it came to qualifying, however, there's bad, and then there's Mahavir Raghunathan bad. In Q1, Lewis Hamilton topped the timings with a 1:45.992. Mazepin, on the other hand, set a 1:53.764, almost 8 seconds off the pace. It doesn't matter if it's wet, dry, or even snowing. If a driver in modern-day F1 sets a lap that far off the pace, it's concerning. Come race day, he dived back into his box of tricks and nearly sent Yuki Tsunoda into the wall, for which he received the black and white flag due to his unsportsmanlike conduct. Later in the race, when the rain came down, the team couldn't take advantage and he was the only driver to finish 2 laps down. Despite spending a fair portion of the race with his teammate and definitely not being off the pace as much as usual, the Tsunoda incident and his quali pace still make it a bad weekend.
Oh, brother. Turkish.
After 5 races with just 1 spin in practice, he didn't hold back, with not 1, not 2, but 3 spins over practice and qualifying. And in the race, his poor driving standards shone through, cutting across Lewis Hamilton while being lapped. I guess if you do something bad to Red Bull, you got to do it to Mercedes, only keeping it fair, right?
Right.
If it wasn't already obvious, bad weekend. Again, the race pace wasn't awful, just he couldn't keep it clean, either with himself or other drivers.
Can't help himself, man. The US of A.
For round 17, we were off to the home race of Haas F1. Oh, sorry, must have got the red, white and blue mixed up. There, that's better. In FP1, his spin counter changed from a lot to a lot plus 1. But in all honesty, from this point forward, the spins actually become much less of an issue. He started last and wasn't helped by his headrest losing the will to live on lap 1. Despite this, he should not be finishing almost a minute and a half behind Schumacher in 19th.
Jesus.
And by the end of the race, he was 1 straight away from being lapped by his teammate. It is therefore another bad weekend.
The US of A again.
In Mexico City, the Russian had an average qualifying.
Hey, that's Mexico.
4.5 tenths down on his teammate, but ahead of Lance Stroll, who was eager to remind us who the OG Canadian pay driver was. In the race, something amazing happened. After Daniel Ricciardo had stopped playing tag with Valtteri Bottas and the safety car came in, Mazepin was in 11th place. He did manage to hold on for a few laps, but lost out in the pit stops and then just kept going backwards, eventually finishing in 18th, over a minute behind the Nutella man. With Schumacher out on lap 1, it's hard to judge, but the Haas car was bad, so I think he did okay. Oh, and later that night he managed to get kicked out of a nightclub.
Mm-hmm. Now, how much do you want to, put into effect the Haas car just in general wasn't that good? Right, listen, I'm not saying Mick was that great either. Mick wasn't that great, but he's a lot better than Mazepin. So yes, Nikita was bad, but Haas haven't really been setting the world on fire since they came into F1. So, I mean, but listen, Mazepin still
coming into Sao Paulo. Mazepin had never driven the Brazil track, but neither had Mick Schumacher or Yuki Tsunoda, so there's the excuse down the drain straight away.
Still trash.
The Russian qualified in last and then sprint qualified in last, but actually the race wasn't bad. After some incidents in front, he was in 15th place for a while, and unlike his teammate, stayed out of trouble.
Jesus.
Did he eventually finish in 19th place? Yes. And did he qualify last and finish the sprint quali last? Yes, and yes. But in my opinion, it might just have been his first good drive of the year. Who am I kidding? He still finished 40 seconds behind Latifi, so it's just okay.
Qatar.
The next 2 races took us to the FIA's new Middle Eastern bank accounts in Qatar and then Saudi Arabia. In Qatar, while he didn't crash in FP1, he did enough damage to the chassis to force him to sit out FP2. He then missed FP3 with an engine issue. Can't spin if we're not on the track, I guess. Having only completed 27 laps in practice and an old, heavier chassis, he was 3 seconds off of Q2 and started from last place. He stayed close to Schumacher for the first stint, but then at the end was over a minute down on his teammate. Even with the old chassis, that's still a bad weekend.
Saudi Arabia.
On to F1's latest purpose-built street track. Yeah, that makes sense. Practice was fairly uneventful apart from the Haas car forgetting what grip was in turn 2. This week's qualifying, however, was particularly bad, over a second clear in last place. In the race, he was doing just fine until the restart, where he decided if he couldn't overtake George Russell, he'd just go through him, giving him his 5th DNF of the season. The accident wasn't really his fault, so I guess this weekend's just kinda meh.
Yeah. Abu Dhabi.
The final round of the season would see him at Abu Dhabi, where he would race,
oh, jeez.
or as it turns out, not race, at the Yas Marina circuit. An overall just rather meh ending to his season. In 22 weekends, he had 12 that were bad, 6 that were okay, and none that were too great, plus 4 I just didn't really know how to grade. If we take the season as a whole, yeah, it was bad.
That is awful. That is awful. I mean, Monaco, okay. France, okay. GB, okay. Mexico, Brazil, okay. That was okay. So it seemed like the last 4 out of 5 races, they weren't completely bad. You know what I mean? Qatar was bad because it's just him. But I mean, as he started off, just got awful, man. First half was. I do feel bad for him Because it's like, my God, straighten up. At the same time, man, look at what you're doing every race. You can't finish races. You're crashing in FP1. You're coming in last once every race. I mean, you constantly like a minute behind everybody.
Bad.
What am I
But
supposed
I
to do?
guess the second half of the year
What
was
am I
slightly
supposed to do?
better, with less bad races,
That's what I'm saying.
albeit due to them being kind of meh instead, but he did almost have one good race in Brazil. Almost. And if we take his spins during the season, out of all 23, shout out to the Mazepin website for keeping track, just 6 came after the summer break. So, to answer the question we already knew the answer to, yes, he was bad. But there are signs he's improving.
Maybe.
And who knows, maybe one day he'll even...
What has happened? We need to know.
Anyways, that's all for now. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure...
Maybe there's a chance for Mazepin one day. Maybe. Probably not. But hopefully you guys can enjoy the video. He doesn't have it. Don't forget to like the video and sub as well. Stay safe. Stay amazing. Talk to you guys later, man. Peace.